I never expected a simple visit from my cousin to turn into one of the most shocking weeks of my life. Honestly, I was excited at first. He hadn't come around in years, and I thought it would just be a few laughs, late-night snacks, and catching up on old memories. But the moment he stepped through the door, carrying that mysterious bag, I felt a chill run down my spine. There was something off, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. My cousin has always had this way of making an entrance, confident, almost too confident, like he knew secrets nobody else did. He smiled at everyone in the room, hugged my mom a little too tightly, and gave my dad a look that made him shift uncomfortably. I laughed it off at first, thinking maybe I was imagining things. But when he set that bag down in the corner, my heart skipped a beat. It wasn't just any bag. It was large, old, and looked like it had been through a lot. And the way he glanced at it, like it wasn't just his bag but something he was almost afraid of, made my stomach twist. I tried to keep the conversation casual, asking him about his trip, where he'd been, and how work was. But every answer felt rehearsed, like he was avoiding telling us something important. My younger sister kept asking, "What's in the bag?" And he would just smile mysteriously, deflecting with some vague joke. Even my parents noticed it. Their laughter sounded forced, as if we were all tiptoeing around a storm we couldn't see yet. I remember that night vividly. After dinner, while everyone else was in the living room watching TV, I went into the kitchen to grab a glass of water. The bag was in my peripheral vision, and I could swear it seemed to shift. I blinked, thinking maybe I was tired, but the sensation lingered. I kept asking myself, why would he bring something like this here? What could possibly be inside a bag that made him so secretive? Then came the noise. A faint clink, almost like metal against metal, coming from inside the bag. I froze, my hand hovering over the fridge handle. My heart started racing. I debated ignoring it, convincing myself I was imagining things, but curiosity won over fear. I crept closer, trying to see if maybe it was just something harmless. But the second I got near, my cousin appeared behind me, almost out of nowhere. He didn't say a word, just looked at me, and for a second, I could see the intensity in his eyes, something I had never noticed before. Something dangerous, or maybe desperate. I wanted to ask what it was. I wanted him to tell me, to laugh it off like it was some silly prank. But before I could open my mouth, he grabbed the bag and pulled it closer to himself. "Not yet," he whispered, and the air in the kitchen felt thick, heavy, like a storm was about to break. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a normal visit. Whatever he brought with him, whatever he was hiding, it wasn't just going to surprise the family. It might change everything. And I had no idea how deep this was about to go. Before my cousin arrived, life at home felt normal, quiet, predictable, maybe even a little boring. My parents had a steady routine: work, chores, small weekend getaways. My younger sister spent most of her time buried in schoolwork or scrolling on her phone, hardly noticing anything that wasn't directly in front of her. And me? I guess I was somewhere in between, working part-time, trying to carve out some independence, but still wrapped up in the comfort of family. We had our moments, sure, but nothing extraordinary happened. That's why his visit felt like a sudden thunderclap in an otherwise calm sky. My cousin and I weren't particularly close before this. We grew up together, of course, summers spent running through our grandparents' backyard, sharing ice creams and secrets we thought nobody else could hear. But over the years, he had drifted away. College, travel, new friends, new life. Every reunion before had been polite, awkward, filled with small talk and exaggerated smiles. I honestly didn't expect much this time either. That is, until I saw that bag. He had always been the kind of person who carried an air of mystery. Even as a teenager, he'd disappear for hours without explanation, come back with stories that sounded half unbelievable, half dangerous. My parents would laugh nervously at his tales, but I could see the worry behind their eyes. And my sister, she was fascinated by him, even scared, in a way that made her cling to me for reassurance. I couldn't blame her. There was always something magnetic about him, but something unpredictable too. When he first arrived, I noticed the subtle changes. The way he lingered near the windows, glancing outside as if expecting someone or something. The way he barely touched his food at dinner, focusing instead on the bag in the corner. My mom tried to engage him in conversation, asking about work and travel, but his answers were brief, almost clipped. My dad, who usually enjoys a good joke, seemed uneasy, his smile a little forced, his eyes constantly flicking toward the corner where the bag sat. Even our small house felt different with him in it. Shadows seemed longer, the air heavier, and my curiosity kept building. I wanted to ask questions, probe, figure out what he was hiding, but something held me back. There was this unspoken warning in the way he carried himself, in the silence between words. And that bag, it wasn't just a bag. It felt alive in a way I couldn't describe, as if it carried a weight far beyond its size. Every time he looked at it, his expression changed, hardening, softening, flickering between relief and fear. And somehow, that made me more anxious, more eager to know. By the time we all went to bed that night, the tension had settled into the house like a low hum. My sister whispered about nightmares. My parents barely spoke, and I, lying awake in my room, kept imagining what could possibly be inside that bag. It felt like waiting for a storm that had already started brewing, though we couldn't see it yet. And I knew this visit wasn't going to end like any other. Something was coming, something that none of us could have predicted. The next morning, things didn't get any easier. My cousin moved around the house as if he owned it, though he rarely spoke. I watched him from the kitchen doorway while he brewed coffee, his hands steady, but his eyes constantly darting to the bag. I couldn't tell if he was nervous, angry, or hiding excitement, maybe all three. The silence in the house felt thicker than usual, almost suffocating, like we were all holding our breath, waiting for something we couldn't name. At breakfast, my mom tried to lighten the mood, asking about his trip. He gave vague answers, mentioning cities and flights, but never specifics. My dad, usually quick to tease him, stayed quiet, occasionally glancing at the bag. My sister, unable to contain her curiosity, finally asked again, "What's in the bag?" My cousin didn't flinch. He just smiled, a slow, unreadable smile, and said, "You'll see soon enough." The rest of the morning, he wandered around the house, talking to no one in particular, muttering things I couldn't quite catch. Sometimes he'd laugh quietly. Other times his expression darkened for a split second. I tried to focus on work, but my eyes kept drifting to that bag, imagining what could be inside. Was it dangerous? Illegal? Something supernatural? Every scenario I imagined felt worse than the last. By noon, the tension had grown unbearable. My cousin finally picked up the bag and carried it into the living room, sitting on the floor with it between his legs. He didn't open it, not yet, but the air in the room felt charged. My sister edged closer, whispering, "Should we stop him?" I shook my head. I didn't know what to do. Even my parents didn't intervene. Then came the first real sign that something had gone beyond normal curiosity. The bag made a strange noise, a metallic scrape, soft but unmistakable. My cousin froze, his hand hovering over the zipper. I held my breath. My mind raced. If this was just a harmless object, why did it feel like the room itself was holding its breath with us? And then, without warning, he looked directly at me, his eyes dark, intense, almost desperate. "You weren't supposed to see that yet," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. My heart skipped a beat. There was fear in his tone, but also urgency. Before I could ask what he meant, the bag shifted again, as if something inside it had moved. A faint clinking echoed across the room, sending shivers down my spine. My cousin's hand tightened around the handle, and for a moment, I thought he might disappear with it. Or worse, that whatever was in there might. And then, just like that, the room went quiet. Too quiet. Something was about to happen. Something none of us were ready for. The rest of the day dragged on like a tightrope stretched over a dark chasm. My cousin barely spoke, but his presence alone was enough to make every small sound. The hum of the fridge, the ticking of the clock, even the wind brushing against the windows, feel amplified. Every time the bag shifted slightly, my heart lurched. I couldn't stop imagining what was inside, and the possibilities were terrifying. By mid-afternoon, the air in the house had grown heavier. My sister kept hovering near the living room, whispering questions I couldn't answer. My parents sat silently on the couch, their hands clasped tightly in their laps, glancing at the bag as if it might explode at any moment. I couldn't focus on anything else. The tension was suffocating, like we were all waiting for a storm that had already begun but was hidden from view. Then my cousin stood up abruptly, pacing in front of the bag. His movements were deliberate, measured, yet full of an energy I couldn't read. Anger, fear, maybe excitement. I noticed how he kept checking the windows and doors, as if making sure we weren't being watched. The sunlight streaming through the blinds cast long, shifting shadows, and in those shadows, the bag looked alive. Suddenly, he bent down and picked it up, holding it close to his chest. My sister let out a small gasp, and my parents flinched. I could see the strain in his arms, but not just from the weight of the bag. There was something more, something intangible that made him seem almost desperate. He whispered to it softly, words I couldn't hear, and then, just as quickly, his expression hardened. "I can't stay here much longer," he said, his voice low, almost trembling. "And you shouldn't be involved." I froze. My mind raced. What did he mean by that? Why would I be in danger? Or was it something else entirely? Something we couldn't even imagine? I wanted to ask, but the words caught in my throat. My heart pounded so hard I thought he would hear it. Then came the sound. Faint at first, almost imperceptible, but growing louder with each passing second. A soft scrape, like metal or glass, shifting inside the bag. My cousin froze again, his hand gripping the zipper, his eyes darting to the windows. I felt a cold sweat on my neck. Something was moving inside that bag, something alive, or something that could destroy everything if it got out. He glanced at us, his gaze sharp, warning. I wasn't supposed to bring it here. I didn't mean to. His voice trailed off, and for a second, I thought he might break down. But then he straightened, gripping the bag tighter, his jaw set. And that's when it happened. The bag jolted violently in his hands, as if whatever was inside had suddenly realized it was trapped. A metallic clink, a low thrum, and a subtle vibration that ran through the floor. I stumbled back, my pulse racing. My sister screamed, my parents shouted, but my cousin stayed frozen, his eyes wide, staring at the bag like he had just seen something he could never unsee. We were on the edge of something massive, something that none of us were ready for. And yet, the worst part was knowing that it was about to happen, and there was nothing we could do to stop it. Just as we thought we were bracing for whatever was inside the bag, my cousin's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and the color drained from his face. The message wasn't for him. It was for us. "Do not open it. They're watching. Move, and it's over." He dropped the bag, and it landed with a thud that echoed through the room. The metal clinks inside had stopped, replaced by a low, ominous hum. My sister shrieked, my parents froze, and I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Whoever, or whatever, was inside that bag wasn't the only danger. Someone else knew. Someone else was waiting. Then, without warning, the lights flickered. The house went dark for a heartbeat, and when they came back on, the bag had shifted again, this time closer to the front door. My cousin's eyes went wide. "They're here," he whispered, panic creeping into his voice. Everything we thought we understood about this visit, the bag, my cousin, even us, was suddenly irrelevant. The stakes had just become impossible, and whatever was waiting outside, or inside that bag, wasn't going to wait patiently. We were trapped, and the real nightmare was only beginning. The front door creaked open, just a fraction, and the hum from the bag grew louder, almost screaming in my ears. My cousin lunged forward, grabbing it before it could slide any closer to the threshold. He staggered back, his arms trembling under its weight. I could see the strain etched on his face, but also a fierce determination, as if he was holding back something that could destroy everything in an instant. "Everyone get back," he shouted. His voice cracked, but it carried authority. My sister and parents stumbled backward, eyes wide with fear, but I couldn't move. Something inside me refused to turn away. The bag zipper began to slowly open on its own, the metallic clinks now punctuated by a low, vibrating growl. Shadows twisted across the walls, and the room felt impossibly small, the air thick with tension. My cousin's hands trembled as he tried to contain it. "This isn't just an object," he gasped. "It's alive." A sudden burst of light shot out of the bag, blinding us for a second. When my vision cleared, I saw it, something I couldn't have imagined. Inside was not a thing, but a swirling mass of memories, emotions, and fragments of people. It pulsed, reacting to our fear, feeding off the tension. I could feel it trying to pull me in, trying to touch something deep inside my mind. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, my cousin fell backward, the bag sliding toward the door again. "No," he screamed. But it was too late. The bag shifted violently, and a single fragment of that swirling mass shot toward the open window. In that instant, I realized the horrifying truth. The bag didn't just hold something dangerous. It absorbed reality itself. Every secret, every hidden thought, every suppressed memory, it wanted more. The house shook. My sister screamed. My parents froze in terror. I dove forward instinctively, grabbing the bag before it could escape entirely. My cousin hit the floor beside me, gasping, eyes wide. We stared at each other, panting, hearts hammering. The bag was still, almost calm now, but we knew it wasn't done. Whatever we had just contained, it was only temporary. And in that frozen silence, a new sound cut through, the faint, unmistakable buzz of another message on the phone. My cousin grabbed it and froze. The message read, "You think it's over? It's only begun." By the time the sun had set, the house felt empty, though the tension lingered like a shadow that refused to leave. My cousin and I sat in the living room, the bag finally secured between us. My parents and sister hovered nearby, still pale and shaken, but alive, and for that, I felt a strange, grateful relief. The immediate danger was over, yet I knew deep down that nothing would ever be the same. My cousin finally spoke, his voice quieter now, almost exhausted. "I should never have brought it here," he admitted, his hands brushing over the worn fabric of the bag. "I thought I could control it. I thought it would be safe. But some things aren't meant to be contained, even by family." I nodded, swallowing hard. I had so many questions, but I also realized that asking them might only make things worse. Still, I needed to understand, at least a little. "What was it?" I asked, my voice shaking. He looked at me, eyes softening, and sighed. "It's a collection of lost pieces. Memories, regrets, secrets people hide from themselves. It grows stronger when ignored, feeds on fear. I didn't bring it here to scare anyone. I wanted to protect it. But I was wrong. It's not something that can ever really be contained." My sister clung to my arm, her earlier terror replaced by wide-eyed wonder. My parents remained silent, finally allowing themselves to breathe again. The room felt lighter, somehow, though the memory of the hum, the flashes of light, and the almost tangible presence of the bag stayed with us. We spent the rest of the evening in cautious conversation, sharing small stories to ground ourselves back in normalcy. My cousin told a few of his own tales, not about the bag, but about his travels, about the people he had met, and about lessons learned from experiences that weren't nearly as terrifying. Slowly, laughter returned to the room, hesitant at first, then genuine. It was as if, for a moment, we could forget the danger and just be a family again. But even in that warmth, a small part of me couldn't shake the lingering unease. The bag sat quietly in the corner, unassuming, yet I knew it wasn't gone. It never would be. It had shown us that some forces, some truths, exist beyond comprehension. Things that can't be fully tamed, only respected. When my cousin finally left the next morning, he hugged each of us tightly. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "And thank you for surviving it with me." I watched him drive away, feeling a mixture of relief and sorrow. Life returned to its usual rhythm after that, though nothing felt exactly the same. The house was quieter, yet somehow fuller. Ordinary routines carried an undercurrent of awareness, a reminder that the world is bigger and stranger than we often let ourselves believe. And sometimes, when the wind rattles the windows just right, or when a shadow falls across the corner of a room, I can swear I hear it. A low hum, like the bag itself remembering. Some things can't be explained. Some things can't be controlled. But they leave their mark, and in that mark, we find a strange kind of wonder and a deeper understanding of the fragile, unpredictable beauty of life.